Good afternoon, everybody. My name is Savannah Arvoy, and for my presentation today, I decided to have my topic be female orgasmic disorder, which I also wrote my research paper on. Um, yeah, and it was a pretty fun topic to write about. It was just, really empowering to learn about all the different ways that women have trouble with having sex in a relationship as well as males. We usually only hear about the male perspective, and it's really nice to finally hear the female side of things, um, as erectile dysfunction is very, very similar to female orgasmic disorder in a lot of ways. um, I just kind of wanted to go ahead and describe um, how myself as a therapist um, kind of goes along with teaching people about this disorder and other sexual issues that they may have. Um, Really, my viewpoint would be something that I would try as hard as I could to leave out of the session for the most part. Um, Hopefully, I will have come to terms with my opinion on sexual matters, especially ones such as this female orgasmic disorder. And yeah, I don't necessarily think that I would have had to gone through a similar experience such as this, just have the knowledge and insight to know that there are people out there going through this situation, and that, I can advocate for it in my sessions with my specific clients, if they have that and they're currently dealing with it. Yeah, and to just kind of show them that even if they have this disorder, it's something that everybody, has trouble with. Possibly at some point in their life. Some people are lucky enough where they don't have to go through something like this, but it is fairly common. I believe 24% of the population pretty much has dealt with this. And that's what I got from my research doing my paper. And yeah, I would just try to have as much empathy as I possibly could for my client and help them understand that female orgasmic disorder is really important, and really important to learn about, so that, in case something like this ends up happening, they don't freak out and think that they have to rush to the doctor right away because there's something detrimentally wrong with them. It's just really important to understand that women go through these issues as well, and it's not something that only males have to suffer and deal with. Um, and as long as we get that information out there, people that might not even realize that they have this condition, they'll just realize that this is something they don't have to be ashamed of. Um, it's just something that you don't have to feel bad about yourself for. And my goal would be to focus on my client and the struggle that they're going through, meaning that I would just really sit down with them, and if they're having issues with this, and they're bringing their partner in, I would kind of try to help them understand that their bond in this process is really, really important, because without that bond, they probably won't be able to work through this issue together. It really has to do a lot with communication and the way that a couple interacts with each other. So, women do go through this when they're single as well. Um, Sorry. But yeah, they can perfectly well have this disorder and not be with anybody. It could be something they've experienced in the past, or, something like that. It's not something that just goes away because we want it to. It's something that we have to work on. And a lot of times therapy will also help us work through that process. And I would also want to work on my own viewpoints on this topic so that transference doesn't occur. And I think that's really important, because transference can really interfere with the therapeutic process. Um, and any stigma I might have against issues such as premarital sex and things like that, I would try to, really work through and realize that everybody has their own viewpoints on things, and they are allowed to act out in any way or shape that they choose, and that choice that they make doesn't necessarily affect my day-to-day life. And that would just be something that I really try to push for myself to understand during sessions, so that my feelings and emotions don't cloud the healing process that I'm putting forth with my therapy. Okay. Let me see. So my paper kind of started off with, discussing what female orgasmic disorder is. I know a lot of people may not know exactly what it is. I don't want to say it's exactly like this, but it has a lot to do in relation with male erectile dysfunction, where they're having trouble reaching a climax or an orgasm during sex. And the research I showed found that it includes the persistent or current delay in or absence of orgasm following a normal excitement phase, which just means that instead of a male ejaculating, it is the lack of a woman having the rhythmic pulses that they have that brings them excitement, and that can also bring a lot of stress relief and just feelings of enjoyment and calm after having a sexual encounter and experience. So it's something that a lot of women really want to experience, and it takes a lot away from them when they are no longer able to do that, or if they just haven't ever been able to experience an orgasm while having sex. It might be difficult to figure out whether or not they have. I mean, discussing it with a doctor or even a therapist, a sex therapist, would be beneficial, just, to maybe realize and get a baseline that there is possibly something going on and something that they need to work on. It's definitely something that if a female was lacking in the bedroom, something she would want to discuss with those that she doesn't feel will necessarily judge her. I'm sure she would want the same for her male counterpart if they were having the same issues. And as I also found out, 24% of females have experienced female orgasmic disorder in the past year, which I think it said that percentage was going up, every now and then, and I'm sure it has its ups and downs, but I thought 24% was quite a significant number, just because I haven't really heard much about it in our day-to-day life or anything like that, and it was just really interesting for me to realize that it's such a prevalent thing that people are having to suffer and go through. I realized that we get a lot more reports of the male equivalent, but I'm glad that they're starting to to report that female are having very similar issues as well, and it can probably be caused by a lot of the same things, I would assume. And more research definitely needs to be done into the male equivalent of this disorder. To get the awareness out there, to realize that there are things that females go through that, could be helped out with therapy or even just good communication from their partner and that sort of thing. And if it's that easy to go to couples therapy and get the help that you need, I don't really, see much of a barrier between that, maybe financially or not having insurance and that sort of thing. But I think it should be looked at as being just as important as a man's erectile dysfunction. I don't think that, one is better than the other because one's a male and one's a female. I think everyone should be treated equally when it comes to their sexual health. And there are also psychological issues that can occur from having FOD or female orgasmic disorder, and a lot of other issues that can come up as well that can disrupt a woman's life. So I'll discuss those later on. The other thing is that there are certain personalities within society that are more susceptible to female orgasmic disorder. For example, those that have low self-esteem a lot of times will be suffering from this disorder. A lot of times it has to do with the fact that they don't feel like they deserve to have the gratification that they can receive from having an orgasm during a sexual experience, especially with those really low feelings that you can get. Just feeling like you're not worth it, that you're not good enough for the person that you're with, that they may be judging you for how you perform sexually in bed, which also has to do with our next one, performance anxiety, which is a huge topic in relation to female orgasmic disorder. they might get caught up. A female, for example, might get caught up when they are having a sexual encounter with their husband and realize that they may be judging them more than they thought, or, think that they're being judged more than they thought. And this thought can start off as an inkling at first, but then the more and the more they think about it while they're having sex, the more they will start to think that, self-consciously, that there's things that they may be doing that are possibly turning their partner off, such as just things that they may not want them to do, and just the lack of communication there can also really amp up the anxiety and, just performance anxiety in general. I think is a major issue. I think men have it especially too, where they just believe that they're going to fail at some point in the sexual experience and, maybe ejaculate too soon. And that happens a lot of times with males. With females, it's almost like their emotions get suppressed. And in a way, they feel as if, just as if they might not be excited as they truly thought that they were. And this could cause their inhibitions to kind of rise and tell them that, whoa, they might be about to experience something that may be sort of embarrassing. There are people that, they tend to be a little bit more closed-minded when it comes to having a fulfilling sexual experience. They may look on sex as a dirty topic, and this can stem from their ideas that their parents brought down on sex when they were younger and that sort of thing. And it can cause them to think that they're doing something bad when they're having sex, which we all know isn't true, but that's a stigma that goes around, especially in Christian families, I think, just because they don't want their children having sex before marriage, and therefore it can make their children have the viewpoint that any kind of sexual relations, even when they're married, because that stigma can kind of stick throughout their adult life, they can think that just every part of the sexual experience is dirty, when in fact it's a beautiful thing that a lot of times produces life, and that gives great pleasure, and that gives the, really good feeling of closeness that people have with their family and their significant other, of course, the intimate feelings that you get. People with female orgasmic disorder also have a lot of times depression and anxiety. This can be a precursor and something that causes FOD, or it can be something that stems out of having the disorder. For example, anxiety can play a big part with someone having this disorder, because while they're having sex with their partner, they would constantly be thinking, is there something I'm doing wrong? Am I not performing the way that they're wanting me to? And just thinking that their partner is worried that they aren't pleasing them as much as they should. And then, of course, when things don't go quite as how they planned, like if they fail to orgasm, then depression may set in. And when this depression sets in, it can cause a lot of unforeseen things to happen, such as sometimes suicide is an issue. And if that is an issue, there's always a suicide hotline and things like that. But there are always therapists to reach out to and talk to about these different situations too. For couples going through this, maybe one that's more based in sex therapy and marriage and family, especially, to help them with that bond. But there's just a lot of different personalities within society that, have a susceptibleness to this disorder. Another topic would be treatment for this disorder. And one of the main treatments is directed masturbation. And this would include having the client explore different ways, with or without their partner, to manually stimulate themselves. This can be beneficial to do with yourself, just alone, and then to do with a partner once you have figured out your preferences and the way that makes you feel good to the point where you possibly could have an orgasm. It's just all about self-exploration. It's something that a lot of people don't get the chance to do, whether it be because stigma of masturbation, or just thinking that it's something that doesn't seem right or their partner might be self-conscious about. But honestly, I think a lot of times it just boils down to the fact that females, and males especially, aren't taught all of the female sexual organs, and we're taught a lot about the male side of things, but when it comes to the female version, for example, there are a lot of things in popular media where males are seen as not being so familiar with the clitoris in certain areas like that. And it's very important sexually to know that those areas are there because they are very sensitive to stimulation. So for a woman to know as much about her anatomy as she can is just, it's very, very helpful to those, especially those with FOD, because a lot of stimulation can take place in those specific areas. And if they're just missed out on, then we miss that level of stimulation and eroticism, and a lot of that can play into having an intense orgasm. And yeah, another treatment would be couples therapy, which I think is really good for anybody that's going through a type of sexual problem that they're having, because it's a safe place where they can talk to somebody that has an unbiased point of view, a marriage and family therapist, or just a regular counselor even. And the couple would work together to figure out what's causing the problem. And yeah, just by talking about this, even the communication between the two can really build and grow from there, and they can realize the things that they're missing out on with each other, about in like a sexual relationship, things that they may want their partner to do that they have felt uncomfortable talking about. And in therapy, they can kind of break down those walls and figure out that it's not something that has to be uncomfortable to talk about, and that it's something that should be talked about on a regular basis to help make sure that both parties are being satisfied to the full extent as they can be. Relieving performance anxiety is also a huge treatment that can help out with this. And the therapist can help by working on the client's or both clients' fear of rejection. A lot of times, performance anxiety stems from the fear that our partner will reject us if we aren't performing in the best possible way. For example, if a male has a partner and she is failing to orgasm, that can, maybe be worrying for him, make it kind of swap roles with him and have him worried that he's not satisfying his wife as much as he possibly could. And this could make him think that sexually he isn't giving his wife the best experience, and make him start to feel bad about himself as well. And I think a lot of this stems from he would be fearing that his wife would reject him because she isn't experiencing the full picture of the sexual experience. And I think vice versa, she might be afraid that her husband is going to, be dissatisfied and that he may leave her as well. It all just kind of comes down to whether or not we're okay with the possibility of being alone in case something happens. I think we have to be able to face that fear and really know that we'll be okay even if things go wrong. I think that's a really big one. It is one of the main things that you have to work on with fear of rejection. And when we're no longer afraid that we're going to lose the most important person in our life, I think that really helps to relieve performance anxiety, because we don't attach the fact that if we perform badly this one time to the idea that things would just be over because of that. We have to understand that our partners are understanding and they have empathy, and that they aren't going to just throw everything away because one wrong thing happened. We have to have trust in our partner, and I think that's really important for a therapist to understand and tell a couple that's in this sort of situation. Another thing that was important for me to talk about in my research paper was the interpersonal relationships and how they affect FOD. One of the main things to help with this disorder is working on the level of intimacy between the couple. It's very important when treating FOD, because without that intimate relationship, it would be very hard for the woman to feel close enough to where she can express herself fully. and that includes in a level of having an orgasm or climaxing during sex. Yeah, and it's also important to understand that the couple needs to have a personal relationship where there is complete understanding and communication between the partners so that proper treatment can ensue. Without this, people would just be getting confused. They wouldn't understand where each of them is coming from, and that can be really confusing, saying to your partner that you're having trouble sexually orgasming, especially if you've never talked about it before. It can be very alarming, especially to the male, because he'll think that there's something he's doing wrong. And as long as the wife kind of explains that she loves him as much as she can, and that his sexual performance isn't in any way attached to her love for him, I think that would go a really long way, and that both parties would understand that there is room for mistakes and errors, and that doesn't define how their relationship really is. It's just the fact that the bond they have between each other is strong enough to hold their love for each other, and that just pretty much having a sexual relationship and a sexual bond is great, and it really helps with feelings of closeness, but having that emotional connection is really one of the most important parts, and it really leads into having a healthy sex life as well. Also, feelings of inadequacy can be common with a lack of communication. If a man is just thinking that he is doing something wrong and his wife isn't orgasming, he can, turn it inwards and think that there's something detrimental about himself that he's doing to harm his wife in a way and not give her the enjoyment that she needs. And if, like I said previously, if she doesn't explain that to him, he can have feelings of not being good enough, which can lead to depression. And it's just really important that that bond that the two people have for each other is strong outside of a sexual relationship too, that it's emotionally strong especially, and that the communication is strong. Those are, I think, the two biggest things, is just being able to understand each other and our wants and needs and desires. The next more important part as well is the diagnosis. And one of the key parts is that if a woman can reach an orgasm by masturbation or by manual stimulation, she's not considered to be diagnosed with FOD, because she is able to masturbate and manually stimulate herself just by herself. And that doesn't mean that she is unable to orgasm. It just pretty much means that her partner isn't in the best of communication with her and understanding what she wants at that time. So it's just pretty much during the sexual encounter, when they're having intercourse, that it would count as having FOD, where she is failing to have an orgasm. And that's where it would really need to be worked on, especially in a counseling session. But if she can orgasm in these other ways, she wouldn't be diagnosed with FOD. It's also beneficial for a woman's partner to be in the room when she's being examined, because this can be a very terrifying experience for her, especially if she's been traumatized in the past, whether she's been raped or something like that. It can be very, very scary for her to have that kind of experience, especially in a doctor's office. So if she has her partner there, she may feel a lot more comfortable. And testing for a diagnosis can be re-traumatizing. And training is also needed for professionals that are conducting a diagnosis. And this is really important, because without the proper training, it would be hard to understand the female anatomy and to realize whether or not there's something physically wrong with her. A lot of times, if there isn't, it's just more of a sign that there is an emotional issue connecting with her partner and an understanding of how she likes to be sexually stimulated. But there is training that would have to go into it, of course. And that kind of goes with a lot of different medical professions, and even training to figure out how to deal with these kind of situations. I think in a clinical setting as well, like with a counselor. And there is a slight ethical concern, in the Muslim community especially, because those in the Muslim community see outreach for FOD as insulting, to their culture because men are the dominant gender in society. Because of this power struggle, it just kind of seems to them as if, like how they have to cover up and wear hijabs and pretty much just pretend like they're not there a lot of times. Female sexual problems aren't seen nearly as important, and they're more seen as objects to men there a lot of times, not all the time. But yeah, men are seen as the dominating gender for sure in a lot of family settings. Women are seen as subservient in the community, and they don't get much say or representation, especially involving their rights and sexual rights especially. Modesty is expected of women in this culture, and yeah, they're just kind of made to, not be seen for the male gaze in those kind of countries, which can be really hard. And like with the hijab, everything except females' eyes are covered. And little is also done to advocate for women's sexual health, especially in this culture. So that's more of an ethical concern for that situation. Yeah, and then I just wanted to put that in conclusion, it's just really important to bring awareness to female issues when it comes to sexual dysfunction. For example, I'm sure there are medications, but we have all heard of Viagra, and it's something that we see on commercials a lot of times, and it's as if the male equivalent for female orgasmic disorder is, the stigma is still there to an extent, but it's a lot more open for people to have that and be seeking treatment for it than it is for females. And I think that, should be changed, because females deserve the right to find the treatment that they need for a sexual dysfunction just as much as males do. And I just hope that my presentation can help spread more information about this, and to help realize that couples therapy can really help those suffering with this, and that it can help a couple's sexual life tremendously, especially if they've been having a lot of issues with this in the bedroom. And hopefully it's something that a lot of people can learn to help with in a marriage and family setting like I'm going to be going into. Well, thank you, and I hope you guys all enjoyed my presentation. I hope you have a good one. Bye.